As I already mentioned, the vocational economist may not earn his living by teaching in an academic institution. Mises worked for the Austrian Chamber of Commerce for 24 years, during which he taught as an unpaid part-time professor at the University of Vienna. He did not obtain a regular, full-time university position until he was over 50 years old, and had already established his reputation as one of the most eminent economists in Europe. Rothbard was being supported by foundation grants during the entire time that he was writing two of his most important works, Man, Economy, and State, and America's Great Depression. He did not receive an academic appointment until he was 40 years old, and it was at a technical school of engineering that offered no undergraduate degree or graduate program in economics. Now, the modern professional economist typically occupies a position in a large, research-oriented university. Vocational economists in the modern world may also, but seldom do, obtain such positions. They tend to work in smaller liberal arts colleges and in professional schools that emphasize teaching, or they hold jobs outside of academia. But how they earn their pay is not an important difference between the vocational economist and the professional economist. An essential difference between the two kinds of economists is the role played by truth in motivating and shaping their research activities. Vocational economists, as I said, are truth seekers. The discovery of truth is the prime motivation, the guide, the reward for their research. Vocational economists, like Mises and Rothbard, are not afraid to use unfashionable terms like truth, law, inexorable, immutable, universal, when characterizing economic concepts and theories. In his treatise, Mises spoke of, quote, the operation of inexorable economic law, unquote. You'd be laughed at in modern universities if you said something like this. He described economics, quote, as the theory of all human action, the general science of the immutable categories of action and of their operation under all thinkable special conditions under which man acts, unquote. Finally, he asserted, the teachings of praxeology and economics are true for every human action without regard to its underlying motives, causes, and goals, unquote. For Rothbard, economics was a body of immutable and universal laws that are logically derived from the fact that people employ means to attain their most desired ends. Thus, Rothbard wrote, quote, all these elaborated laws of economics are absolutely true. Economics does furnish existential laws, unquote. Rothbard described the purpose of his treatise, Man, Economy, and State, as, quote, slowly and logically to build on the basic axioms an integrated and coherent edifice of economic truth, unquote. Now, contrast these statements by Mises and Rothbard with that of Paul Samuelson, the exemplar of the modern professional economists. Samuelson once declared, and I'm quoting from him, I can claim in talking about modern economics, I am talking about me, unquote. And I say truer words have never been spoken, because Samuelson manifested in the highest degree all the qualities of the modern professional economist. Samuelson was a logical positivist of the crudest kind. He believed good theories are simply economical descriptions of the complex facts of reality. His words. Such theories, according to Samuelson, are supposed to more or less accurately represent facts that are currently observed or are likely to be observed in the future. In other words, Samuelson's positivist conception of theoretical research rested on the elementary logical fallacy that non-repeatable historical facts can reveal the causal laws that operate and interact to produce a unique and complex economic event at a later moment in history. Now, why would Samuelson have embraced such nonsense? He explained, quote, not for philosophical reasons, but purely out of long experience in doing economics that other people will like and that I will like, unquote. Okay, so he liked to theorize in this way. Samuelson and Solow, his co-author, their formulation of the now discredited Phillips curve, which postulated a stable trade-off between inflation and unemployment, is a good example of such theorizing in action. Without doubt, the Phillips curve for a time was well liked by Samuelson, Solow, and other professional economists, and was even used by government policymakers. but its truth content has proven to be exactly nil by the worldwide stagflation that developed in the 1970s. However, the professional economists need not worry too much about such obvious failures of their models to yield true knowledge about reality. According to Samuelson, his reward for pursuing economic research lies elsewhere. And this is what Samuelson writes about why he and other professional economists do economic research. In the long run, the economic scholar works for the only coin worth having, our own applause, unquote. Along the same lines, Samuelson describes scientists, including professional economists, as being, quote, as avaricious and competitive as Smithian businessmen, referring to Adam Smith's businessmen. He goes on, the coin they seek is not apples, nuts, and yachts, nor is it coin itself, or power, as that term is ordinarily understood. Scholars seek fame. The fame they seek is fame with their peers, the other scientists whom they respect and whose respect they strive for. Unquote. Samuelson's account of the reward sought after by modern professional economists, if it is accurate, clearly reveals that their research is not governed primarily by a search for truth. Okay. They just want to hear people clapping, people that they like. But Samuelson's view is not completely accurate. The professional economist does indeed toil to obtain position, power, and income, mainly by means of the state. A more accurate account than Samuelson's of the goals sought by the professional economist was given by Mises in his description of Werner Sombart. Sombart was the leader of the third generation of the German historical school, which was viciously anti-Austrian and anti-theoretical. The school was already in decline after World War I, but still controlled the prestigious university chairs. German economists, or German economics, had been professionalized in the late 19th century, which really means brought under the control of the state. And this was long before economics in the English-speaking countries. Sombart was perhaps a consummate professional economist, and Mises knew him personally. The personality that emerges in Mises' entertaining portrayal of Sombart is the very antithesis of the vocational economist. Now I'm going to quote Mises at a little bit of length about Sombart. Werner Sombart was the great master of his set. He was known as a pioneer in economic history, economic theory, and sociology. And he enjoyed reputation as an independent man because he had once aroused the ire of Kaiser Wilhelm. Professor Sombart really deserved the recognition of his colleagues because to the greatest degree, he really combined in his person all their shortcomings. He never knew any ambition other than to draw attention to himself and to make money. He was always seeking public applause. He wrote paradoxes because he could then count on success. He was highly gifted, but at no time did he endeavor to work and think seriously. Of the occupational disease of German professors, delusions of grandeur, Hans Hoppe isn't here, is he? Sombart had acquired a huge share. When it was fashionable to be a Marxian, he professed Marxism. When Hitler came to power, he wrote that the Führer receives his orders from God, unquote. So that's Mises' description of the professional economist. Now this brings us to the role of the state in the development of the economics profession. In Human Action, Mises drew a perceptive distinction between vocational economists and professional economists, which invoked the interventionist state. Wrote Mises, the early economists devoted themselves to the study of the problems of economics. In lecturing and writing books, they were eager to communicate to their fellow citizens the results of their thinking, in order to make sound policies prevail in the conduct of civic affairs. They never conceived of economics as a profession. Now he's referring to the great classical economists. Now, continuing, Mises says, the development of a profession of economists is an offshoot of interventionism. The professional economist is a specialist who is instrumental in designing various measures of government interference with business. He is an expert in the field of economic legislation. which today invariably aims at hindering the operation of the market economy. Unquote. Let me expand on Mises' brilliant insight. The professionalization of a scientific discipline, particularly a social science like economics, almost always proceeds hand in hand with the expansion of government intervention. The reason for this inevitable connection rests on two facts. On the one hand, as Mises pointed out, the state requires a class of intellectuals and specialists to design and provide rationalizations for various interventions into the market economy. On the other hand, those intellectuals who seek a regular income are always ready to serve the state's needs, because the ability of an intellectual to earn his living on the free market by researching and writing is always uncertain, at best. As the interventionist state expands, it reinforces the need for trained experts. The university system obliges by initiating and expanding graduate programs that will provide such personnel. In exchange, the universities receive increased government subsidies. The lucrative positions in these programs are naturally given to those economists who are most eager to professionalize, because they are the ones who are most active and outspoken in their support of government intervention. In the U.S., the most extreme case of domestic interventionism occurred during the two world wars of the 20th century. It was therefore no surprise that the movement to professionalize American economics, which began in the 1880s, experienced great progress during these war crises. For when the state goes to war, it needs professional experts to plan and direct the massive mobilization of the resources it requires. This translates into high-paying and prestigious positions for economic experts and specialists in the bureaus and advisory boards of the government planning apparatus that centrally directs the war economy. Now, these wartime experiences led economists to recognize the potentially great material benefits that they would gain from a permanent alliance between their profession and the centralized American state. They responded by formally reorganizing the discipline and reshaping its educational methods and requirements to suit the prospective needs of the emerging Cold War national security state. Many new sub-disciplines of economics emerged during the Cold War era. Game theory, linear programming, national income accounting, input-output analysis, growth theory, development economics, all these were designed to serve the needs of the interventionist and imperialist American state. Unfortunately, this proliferation of specialized fields led to a disintegration of economic theory. This was signified by the disappearance of the general economics treatise. In fact, no such treatises were published aside from Human Action and Man, Economy, and State after World War II. No longer was there an integrated system of general economic principles that were held in common and applied to the analysis of all policies and problems by those who call themselves economists. Now, each little subfield of research had its own special theory, which was more or less sealed off from general economic theory. Even general theory itself was now divided into microeconomics and macroeconomics. The disintegration of economics was compounded by the post-war trend toward positivism. However, the unrealistic theoretical models constructed by professional economists in their specialized fields can never assist us in understanding the essential laws governing the market economy. For as Mises pointed out, quote, the economist must never be a specialist. In dealing with any problem, he must always fix his gaze upon the whole system. Economics does not allow of breaking up into special branches. It invariably deals with the interconnectedness with all the phenomena of action, unquote. Our discussion thus far leads to an important general point.